Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues of the Moment. Across Nigeria today, the call for economic diversification has grown louder as citizens and policymakers confront unemployment, declining revenues, and the urgency to look beyond oil. Among the sectors gaining renewed attention is the culture, tourism, and creative economy, a space rich with talent, heritage, and potential, but still largely underutilized. From festivals to historic sites, from Nollywood to visual arts and crafts, Nigeria's cultural assets remain some of the most powerful tools for national branding and youth engagement. Yet challenges such as low investment, weak infrastructure, and inconsistent policy execution continue to limit the sector's full contribution to national development. Now, to help us explore the opportunities and the practical steps needed to reposition this sector, we are joined today by Mr. Chuks Akamadu, a cultural scholar, tourism expert, and CEO Afro Cultural Limited. My name is Justin Bemunyi, and I welcome you to the program. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us on the program Issues of the Moment. Our focus today is on unlocking Nigeria's culture, tourism, and creative economy for national development. And my guest is Mr. Chuks Akamadu. He is an intellectual property lawyer, a cultural scholar, tourism expert, and the CEO Afro Cultural Limited. Well, thank you so much for finding out time to come on the program to discuss issues around culture and tourism. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm pleased to be here.
You're very much welcome. Unlocking Nigeria's culture, tourism, and creative economy for national development. We want to discuss this, but let's begin with the fundamentals. Why do you believe that Nigeria still underestimates the economic value of culture, tourism, and of course the creative industry?
Well, I think it's self-evident that Nigeria still considers culture, tourism to be not a primary matter, not even a secondary, but a tertiary matter. Hence the attitude and disposition of government towards it. I will tell you for free that there is no country in the world that takes culture seriously that will still be operating the 1988 cultural policy. As we speak, the extant cultural policy in the land is dated 1988. And you can imagine it's obsolete. And that is the very, very foundation of every ecosystem. If we had been taking matters of culture seriously, understanding that truly culture could be deployed as a tool for economic transformation, there is no way we wouldn't have reviewed Nigeria's policy for culture 1988 severally before now. Same issue is obtainable in the tourism sphere. We've just concluded the validation meeting for review of the Nigerian tourism policy. Before now, we also didn't have a tourism policy that could effectively respond to the needs of the sector. So the Nigerian Tourism Master Plan on its part came into being in the year 2006, and here we are, 2006, 2016, 2020. This is about 19 years plus, and it hasn't been reviewed. That goes to show that truly we do not reckon that cultural tourism economic pathways that could help us with our diversification aspirations as a nation. So I think that explains it very, very satisfactorily that we're operating a cultural policy that is a military legacy, as it were.
So let me take it from there. Now, from your experience, working within the ecosystem, what would you say is the major barrier or major barriers, that are currently slowing down the growth in this sector?
Well, I would say it's the political will. I would say it's the poor appreciation of cultural tourism by our leaders as matters that should be left in the realm of leisure. They don't seem to understand that here we have a cash cow that is just lying waste. The day the government realizes that, cultural tourism is actually more profitable than the oil and gas deposits we have in the Niger Delta, you will see that things will change for the better. You're talking about cultural tourism, you're talking about a renewable resource as against oil and gas, which is not a renewable resource. One day we'll run out of gas deposits, one day we'll run out of oil deposits, but we won't run out of our existence. We won't run out of our heritage, cultural sites, our values, our festivals, those things that constitute our being as a people, that really stands us out from the crowd in the Committee of Nations that ordinarily should have been harnessed to be a major money spinner for the country.
Talking about harnessing and talking about being the money spinner, youth unemployment remains a major concern for the nation. How can the culture and creative industry, serve as a practical pathway, for job creation?
Well, it's doing that already, but it's developing organically without any structured effort on the part of the government. Nobody made Two-Face. Nobody brought Burna Boy on the stage, on the global stage. It was individual effort. If you look at the stars we have now, whether it's Tiwa Savage, whether it's Thames, whether it's all of them, you will find that these were talented Nigerians who struggled and decided to swim against the tide, because the tide was against them, in the sense that we didn't have the requisite sectoral infrastructure to enable them excel. But they defied all of these odds to emerge very, very victorious. Now, what does that show? It simply means that we have 1,000,001 Burna Boys out there who probably are a lot more talented than Burna Boy, but do not have Burna Boy's tenacity. That is where the infrastructure, the requisite infrastructure, comes into play. Because these children, these young people, I can assure you, Nigerians have loads and loads of talented young men and young women. They need this right environment for them to flourish. Now, I'll give you an instance. If you look at Abuja as a city, you would agree with me that we have incidences of drug use, drug abuse here and there. We also have incidences of young people doing Yahoo and all of that. Let me tell you, if we had the right infrastructure in place, Abuja is big enough to house hundreds of recording studios. How many record labels do we have in Abuja, for instance? So as a young man or a young woman growing up who is talented musically, that would have loved to express themselves artistically, and they look left, they look right. Nothing encourages them, because they can't walk into the nearest or nearby studio to go try their thing, hone their skills, and then perfect their craft and all of that. So these things are limitations, and that's why government would have to take this thing a lot more seriously and realize that any investment they make, they any investment they make in the cultural tourism sector, they're actually investing in the future of Nigeria. Because the good thing is that we're going to have multiplier effect. We have the raw talent. They just need an enabling environment for them to express themselves, do Nigeria proud, prosper economically, and make their family test wealth and prosperity.
You've been talking about the political will. You just mentioned there's some infrastructures and there's some structures that we need to fix. Now, beyond policy talk, now what specific infrastructure upgrades must Nigeria prioritize, to support this tourism and cultural activities you're talking about?
Well, I do not know when in the history of this country, especially in the past 30 years, when government commissioned an audit of all of our museums in this country. Practically every state of this federation has a museum. I have also not heard at any point when they say, oh, the curators that manage these museums have gone on a refresher course. What does this mean? It shows abandonment. It shows that government does not prioritize it. It shows government does not think it should actually be put out there in the front burner. If we want to prosper on this path, I think that one of the things government can do is to commission an audit of how well these our tourist destinations, cultural assets have fared in the past. You need to do that so as to determine where there are gaps, because we should be looking at them as economic tools. Where there are gaps, so that when you identify that and all of that, you will now find a way of closing the gaps. You now find a way of upgrading them to meet today's needs. Because for some of these museums, like I said, for the past 10, 15, 20 something years, nothing major has happened to them because the government does not think it's a priority. But if this attitude is changed and we upgrade our museums across the length and breadth of this country, that way, even the private sector will now be attracted to bring in funding. The private sector will not bring in funding when government, the public sector, does not demonstrate faith in that. When the public sector does not demonstrate faith in the ability of the sector to fund itself and become profitable. That's one thing that we seem not to realize. The government must be the ones that will move forward, demonstrate faith in that particular project. And when they do, I can assure you that the private sector will say, okay, this is good. Why don't we invest in it? Because the private sector person is always looking at profit. If they find that this is a profitable or an investment-friendly environment, they'll put their money there.
Now we can see that Nigeria hosts so many festivals and cultural expressions at one time or the other of every year. How can these expressions, better be structured, to attract both domestic and international visitors?
Well, thankfully, cultural tourism are matters that are found in the concurrent list. They are found on the concurrent list of the Constitution, meaning that the federal government and subnationals can play in it. And thankfully too, I can assure you that if there was one good thing that immediate past administration did, was to review the Anti-Daisy Act that turned Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation into Nigerian Tourism Development Authority. The major takeaway from that transition was the fact that the NTDA Act now provides for robust collaboration between and amongst the federal government, and the subnationals. Then the barriers that had hitherto existed between the public and the private sectors have also been broken down. That means that we now have an environment where both the private and public sector can come together in a mutually reinforcing, mutually supportive manner to grow the industry. That's the same thing with the 3 tiers of government. Now, I think that we should we should come up with a national festival calendar that is all encompassing. A national festival calendar that is all encompassing, so that we know what Yobe is doing and at what time. We know, okay, what Jigawa is doing at what time. If we have a festival calendar and they are structured in a manner that a holiday maker, whether the person is in Nigeria or the person is coming from outside, has a good idea of where to go to, and from there where next to go to, so as to maximize the benefits of that tourism adventure. Then it will be a lot easier for people to say, okay, I'm going to spend X amount of money going to Nigeria this season. Why? I know that from Calabar Carnival, I'll be going straight to Katsina Doba, for instance. And from Katsina Doba, I will be going straight to Yankari Games Village. From Yankari Games Village, it will make for better and easier planning for those who intend to visit Nigeria. It will also show that we have become serious. It will also show that we now take matters of culture and tourism seriously. You will now find even airlines, domestic and international airlines, will begin to structure their operations to also suit the changing circumstances of our culture tourism ecosystem.
Still talking about, the economic value of this culture and tourism. You earlier mentioned how Nigeria has vast talents like artists. You mentioned some characters, talked about Burna Boy, etc. Now, talking about the economic value, the world is increasingly, from data and from what we know now, the world is increasingly consuming African entertainment. Talk about fashion, talk about art, music, what have you. How can Nigeria convert this cultural influence into measurable economic gain?
Well, unfortunately, we do not have data here. We are not data-oriented. We can only say, okay, Nollywood is the second largest movie industry in the world. But when it comes to the real stats that you need to work with, we don't have them. So it becomes a lot difficult for us to track progress on that path. We need to take our data culture a lot more seriously, so that in real time we can say this is where we are at the moment, so that we can make the right projections too, and so that planning will become integral part of our efforts to see that our cultural tourism sector is repositioned for economic growth, or to play greater economic role. I tell you that cultural tourism is big business. It's big business. Tourism, the global tourism revenue is put at $11 trillion. And we are not different, I can assure you, from a lot more countries on the continent of Africa. Africa goes on with a paltry 5% of that $11 trillion. 5%. Then if you compute it, I can assure you that Nigeria is way back. Why? Because we have elected not to play big in that league. This is a gold mine that we are sitting on. All we need is to take it a lot more seriously. All we need is to make sure, see, it comes with our appreciating who we are first. We need to first appreciate who we are, appreciate our identity, appreciate our cultural heritage, appreciate our cultural sites, our values and everything. And by the time we begin to take pride in who we are and who we represent on the continent of Africa, that's the only way you can attract a non-Nigerian to come and see who we are. And not when we hold what we have and who we are in contempt, or when we are not sure of who we are, and you expect people to patronize, it will be very difficult. Some of us look forward to a situation where we would have presidents and governors who decide to go on annual vacations, and you ask, where did that person go to? And you hear that, yeah, they went to Obudu Cattle Ranch to spend. That way, what you're telling the whole world is that, come to my place. That is a very good place to spend time. We want to hear that major seminars are held at Whispering Palm, Badagry, Lagos. Such a serene, beautiful place. That we want to see government take events to National Conservation Foundation at Lekki in Lagos, and we have a whole lot of this. In this country, we have only one war museum. It's in Umuahia. How many people still go there? Why did we build that museum? The museum was built after the Civil War to serve as a deterrent to those who would want to take up arms against the state. But we haven't been utilizing it for that purpose. Otherwise, that place should have been a maker of some sort. Look at that. That's why, if you look at a country like Rwanda, yes, after the genocide and everything, do you know how much the genocide museum in Rwanda now makes for the country? So much money. So much money. Before now, Borno place was a no-go area. There were places that you couldn't go at all. What stops us from going to Borno or going to Yobe? For instance, it's okay, let's barricade a section of those places that were being controlled by Boko Haram insurgents and all of that. Tomorrow we can earmark a portion of it and turn them into tourist site tomorrow, because insurgency is not going to live with us forever. By the grace of God, we are going to conquer it, and very soon too. But it's also good for us to preserve that part of our history, so that generations unborn will see it and appreciate the enormity of the havoc that was wreaked on our land on account of insurgency. That way, they will be deterred from walking same path of destruction.
We can't say all this without talking about community inclusivity or community inclusion, as it is key. How do we ensure that, that the local people in the communities, they benefit directly from cultural tourism and, heritage activities? How does it trickle down to the communities?
Firstly, this, when we talk about tourist destinations, they are not in Abuja. They don't live in. They are not in capital cities. They don't live in government houses and all of. They are in the communities. Firstly, we need to let the locals know that they own those destinations, those sites, and that they are treasures, that they are community treasures that really stand them out from the crowd. They should actually take pride in being the owners of those tourist destinations. When they do, and a government on its part now provides the requisite infrastructure in terms of power supply, in terms of motorable roads and all of that, a lot more people will be encouraged to go there. And when they go there, they spend money on the local economy. The akara seller, the woman that fries and sells akara, will sell her akara. The photographer within that community will also take his bit. The driver that will take that tourist to that place will take, the tour guide will have a share of. That person will lodge in a hotel or somewhere around that hotel. The hotel attendant will gain something. The person working there, because this is a very big chain. The multiplier effect is so vast that it affects everybody. And the good thing about tourism is that it accommodates the skilled, the unskilled, and the semi-skilled. So it's inclusive in that regard. It's also gender sensitive, because it takes as many women as it takes men. It's very, very inclusive, and what again? It does not discriminate between the educated and the uneducated too. So it's one good sector that, if we take seriously, would even go a long way in absorbing most of our youths who have nothing to do at the moment, by so doing, we'll be reducing the incidences of crime and violent crime and criminality in the country.
Just a parting word, if you were to design maybe a 5-year development blueprint for this sector, what would be your top priorities for government and private stakeholders? 2
things. Our commission and audit, because it's very important for us to know where we are coming from. It is when you do that, you'll be able to determine what you haven't done well, because that's what will present you with the stark picture, raw picture of what you need to confront with. Our commission and audit and know why we haven't fared well this part. Afterwards, I would ensure that manpower, the issue of manpower training, the issue of skilled personnel, the issue of trained cultural administrators and tourism managers are taken as a priority. Because it's good, you can get a lawyer to manage a tourist site, you can get an accountant to manage a festival, but I can assure you, you would be doing yourself a world of good to get experts, those who are trained as cultural officers, as cultural administrators and tourism managers to be the ones driving the process. Because again, they do it with passion. They operate from the point of knowledge, and they have the requisite skills to implement whatever it is that they
well, thank you so much, Chuks Akamadu. Thank you. We can't appreciate you enough. Thank you so much for your time with us, for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, this is Issues of the Moment, and you know, Nigeria's cultural, tourism, and creative assets hold immense promise, not just for revenue growth, but for shaping national identity and creating meaningful opportunities for young people. Unlocking this potential requires clear policy, strategic investment, stronger partnerships, and a renewed commitment to treating culture and creativity as central pillars of national progress. Well, I thank you so much for joining us on Issues of the Moment. This is where we end the program. And my guest has been Chuks Akamadu. He's an intellectual property lawyer, cultural scholar, tourism expert, and the CEO, Afroculture Limited. Once again, thank you for joining us on the program. My name is Justin Bemuyen. I say bye for now.